So with the way that things are going, it should only be a matter of time until Amazing Spider-Man 3 is officially greenlit, and here are the things that need to happen in this movie. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So with the sudden resurgence in popularity of the Amazing Spider-Man universe, arguably even more so than it was when it was actually being released, I feel like it's only a matter of time until we hear the news that Andrew Garfield is reprising his role as the infamous Peter Parker and Spider-Man character in the arguably incredible world that Sony was building within the Marc Webb Amazing Spider-Man universe. I just can't wait to see Amazing Spider-Man 3, as there are some awesome things that this movie was setting up, and apparently they're currently in negotiation stage, so very shortly we should be hearing the good news. So here are the 10 things that I feel should take place in this movie. The first one, of course, is that we are going to see Peter Parker against the infamous Sinister Six. This is something that they were setting up at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they were going to have a very separate movie that was dedicated towards the Sinister Six. Now, I know some people didn't really like it. I was really impressed actually with what they were setting up, especially with the Harry Osborn character going to be the one that's going to lead the new Sinister Six, with the Gentleman being the person that is creating them. And I feel like they could have had some really interesting members. For example, the Russian guy in a giant rhinoceros costume, which Andrew Garfield himself hilariously made fun of in No Way Home. And maybe they would have also had Doc Ock, which again, like I said, they were teasing. And these three characters could then combine with the ones that they are setting up in the end of Morbius. So for example, we could have Venom, we could have Vulture, we could also have Morbius, and I feel like it would be absolutely awesome to hear the good news that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is the one that is actually in the Venom universe, which is something else that they were going to be setting up previously as well. I guess the only complication is, where does Tom Holland's Spider-Man fit into all of this, as the Vulture character and maybe Morbius could actually be villains for that character, even though I don't know, I feel like it could really be easily done to sway everything back into the Amazing Spider-Man universe. But like I said, what does that mean for Tom Holland? So I guess that's a question that we're going to hopefully hear the answer to very soon. But the next thing that I'd love to see in this movie is Mary Jane Watson. Now, I think it was the right decision to not include this character, as they wanted to focus on Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not only did they have incredible chemistry, but the storyline emotional arc that they were telling in that movie, I feel like it was really important just to focus on those two characters. However, Shailene Woodley's deleted scenes did look really cool, and I feel like Mary Jane could be a really intriguing character, especially in this darker, grittier, slicker world. And now that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man has seen another MJ and will have heard about Mary Jane Watson from Tobey Maguire's character, I feel like it'll be really interesting to see that version then returning into this world and then seeing his own Mary Jane Watson. I feel like they could have a lot of fun with those particular scenes. I feel like we will also see Black Cat. Felicity Jones, cast as Felicia Hardy, and Black Cat was absolute genius casting, and I hope they are able to convince Felicity Jones to return, as she was so good as Felicia Hardy. Even though we didn't see that much of her, like I said, I feel like she has so much potential as that character, and of course Sony has been trying for years to try and get a Black Cat movie out of the door, and I feel like Felicia Hardy would be so good, and I feel like it would be really great to then see the Amazing Spider-Man interacting with Black Cat. I feel like that would be really cool. Next up, we have to see Spider-Gwen. On that point, I just feel like the Amazing Spider-Man universe just did female characters so brilliantly. Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy, Felicia Hardy, I feel like they were so good with all of their particular female characters, even better to some extent than Tobey Maguire's world and also Tom Holland's world. But anyway, going back to Spider-Gwen, I feel like this character could actually be introduced in quite a number of different ways. Now we've got the multiverse and the Spider-Verse being introduced in No Way Home. They could either have a timeline in which the Gwen Stacy character was actually bitten by the spider. Maybe they can ignore all the fact that it was actually Richard Parker's DNA that meant that Peter Parker was the perfect host. But either way, they could explore that route. Or alternatively, they could use the Spider-Gwen that's in the animated universe, and when she pops up into live action, she could be played by Emma Stone, and then we could have a bit of a reunion with Spider-Gwen and the Amazing Spider-Man. I feel like that would be absolutely wicked. Speaking of Richard Parker, I feel like he needs to be in the next movie. The deleted scenes were just absolutely unbelievable, where you got to see Andrew Garfield acting his heart out and pouring his heart out when he sees his dad returning. I just feel like that scene just absolutely hits the heart of every single person that watched it, and I'm just so gutted that they deleted it. as it would have just meant that The Amazing Spider-Man 3 would have just been so demanded by audiences, as it was just such an intriguing cliffhanger way to end it. And I just really want to see what on earth they could have done next. I mean, having a bit of a mentor figure for Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the name of Tony Stark would work really, really well. So I'm really intrigued also to see what that would mean to have Richard Parker, the father of Peter Parker, back in his life, and he's a bit of a science genius as well. Maybe they can both invent certain things, maybe they can also come head to head with Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn. Maybe he will get some superpowers as well. I feel like they have just so much potential with Richard Parker, and I'm just really hopeful that we'll get to see some kind of a continuation taking place. Next up is Ben Reilly. So speaking of Richard Parker and Peter Parker doing some experimentation, maybe this will lead them to creating some clones. And I know people made fun of what The Amazing Spider-Man 3 could have been with the clone saga in terms of bringing people back from the dead. There were of course reports that Emma Stone was going to reprise her role as Gwen Stacy, and her father was also going to be returning from the dead. But really what I think they were going to do is the clone saga. So maybe they would have cloned certain people, and then maybe those clones would have either turned into zombies or they would have turned into something really, really evil. But what I would have loved to have seen is Ben Reilly, so a clone played by Andrew Garfield, playing both Peter Parker and his cloned version of Ben Reilly. I feel like the clone saga has so much potential and is just such a wicked comic book storyline, and I would have loved to have seen it taking place in live action. Next up, it has to be Venom, so I can't wait to see Venom versus Spider-Man, Eddie Brock versus Peter Parker, Tom Hardy versus Andrew Garfield. I just feel like it is going to be absolutely incredible. Both actors are absolute hot property at the moment, and I feel like if Sony is just really going to do this, they are easily going to get another billion-dollar movie in their hands, and I just feel like I can't wait to see these absolutely epic characters fighting it out, and then maybe this will lead to the Symbiote Saga. So likewise, we could see the Clone Saga, we could also see the Symbiote Saga. So, you know, in animations we have seen loads of people turning into symbiotes, loads of superheroes as well turning into symbiotes. I feel like that could be really, really cool. All of Venom's family from a symbiote perspective could be descending on Earth, and seeing how on Earth Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker and Spider-Man is going to deal with this. Maybe he would then team up with Venom, and I just feel like this more hilarious, lighter take on the Venom character would just be absolutely hilarious in this darker world, and I'm just really, really hopeful that we get to see that. Next up is of course Miles Morales. I feel like it's only a matter of time as well until we see Miles Morales playing his version of Spider-Man on the big screen. I feel like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker and Spider-Man could be mentoring this character, or similarly he could be introduced in Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire mentoring him, or he could be introduced in Tom Holland's world where he actually is a friend and a lab partner to Peter Parker. I feel like either three scenarios could work, but like I said, only a matter of time until we see Miles Morales. Next up, I'm sure that we'll get to see Mr. Negative in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. I feel like the first Spider-Man game really did put this character right at the heart, and now the actor who voiced him in the video game really wants to play him in live action. And I feel like this character actually, out of all of the universes, sits really well and fits really, really well within Marc's Webb darker world of this particular universe, as this character has got a bit of a split personality. He's got a lighter side, he's got a darker side, he's able to use the light force, he's able to use the dark force, and he is a bit of a gangster villain within New York City. And I just feel like in the MCU they've got quite a number of characters trying to take over New York City's underworld. For example, the Kingpin, the Power Broker, Valentina. Come on, let's give Mr. Negative to Andrew Garfield, and I just feel like it would be really, really interesting to see how on earth he would deal with this. Typically, Mr. Negative is a villain for Cloak and Dagger, and we have seen Cloak and Dagger playing out in the TV space, and I feel like Mr. Negative is a really, really good villain for what they were creating for that particular strand of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I'm just really intrigued to also see Mr. Negative taking place in live action. And then finally, we could see the Superior Iron Man storyline being played out in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. I feel like this is such an infamous storyline in not only the comic books, but also the latest animated series explored this storyline as well, and it was just so wicked. And I feel like Andrew Garfield would be really, really well placed to have his version of Doc Ock taking over his mind, and just seeing how he is then going to act and play out this really dark, sinister, evil scientist villain character. I just feel like it has potential to be absolutely awesome, and I just can't wait to see it playing out. So those are my 10 theories and the 10 things that I would love to see happening in Amazing Spider-Man 3 and the universe being continued and carried on beyond that as well. But now I'd love to hear from you. What are your 10 things? What are your predictions of what could be taking place in the third Amazing Spider-Man movie? I would love to hear them, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.